Hello, I'm Rob Constantine, and this is Paranormal Record.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Today, very, very special guest, dear, dear friend of mine of almost 20 years now. We went to SCAD together, Savannah College of Art and Design, and his name is Ryan McCurdy. He is an incredibly talented uh, actor, musician, artistic director. Let me just read what I wrote. This is some of the stuff that he's done. I tried to put it into a synopsis so I could read it for you because it just goes on and on. Very modest, this gentleman, but I'm going to toot his horn today for him. He is a working New York theater actor, and among his credits, he has played multiple roles in the national tour of Once. He's also been the show's music director and brought the production recently to Savannah about 2 years ago and performed the leading role for the Savannah Repertory Theater, which he was serving as the artistic director at the time. And it was such an incredible show. So many talented people. It was incredible. It was one of the best shows I've seen in the last 20 years. I'm telling you. And it was crazy because I read about him and kind of kept up with him, seeing him tour all over the country, but never getting to see the show because it was never down here, right? And I haven't been to New York in a long time. But finally, it was just in Savannah. It was over St. Patrick's Day weekend 2 years ago. And it was, it was just incredible. Anyway, I could go on and on about that show. He is notably a working theater actor in both New York and Savannah. He's serving music director, artistic director, along with his work in theater, television, and film. He is a 12 instrument multi instrumentalist and the founding member of the rock band Boreum. So that's just a couple of things about this incredible human being. Anyway, he and I both lived in Savannah, very haunted place, and he's got some stories to tell. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get into it. Here he is. Here's Ryan McCurdy.
Ryan, man, how are you, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm
I
doing.
love this. I love this. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you. What are we talking about?
Well, the show is called it's called Paranormal Record, and
Okay.
I know you've done your homework. So,
I have listened. Yes, I have listened to the show. I was trying to play it cool, but I've totally listened to the show. I'm cool.
I'm
I'm a
like
big fan of all your creations.
I'm like he's very busy. He wants me to explain the show right now. I'll help him out.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that you don't explain the show. Yeah, you don't make a habit of explaining the show. So I figured this is in my best interest to know the show because otherwise I'm jumping in cold and I'm not about to polar bear into your podcast.
Well, that sounds dangerous. I don't need polar bears running around at any point.
Oh,
Uh,
I meant like a polar bear plunge, but you went straight to the
oh,
animal, and that's just what we're going to be today for this.
very, very dangerous.
Yeah, sure.
I have a very good natural fear of bears. Um, so no, if you have listened to the podcast, I encourage everyone to listen to the podcast. Even if you only listen to the first episode, it's still my favorite episode. I love that episode. Like the pilot is it's good stuff. But there's a Savannah episode, and there's all kinds of
Hmm.
like you stay down there, so all that stuff is relevant. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
it's not going anywhere.
and then he talks about New Orleans and uh, St. Augustine. So all that stuff is right here with us in the South. So, yeah, man. So, you are a professional actor. You're a writer, director, producer of many things, working actor. Um, in New York and Savannah. And how was your day? How was your week?
It was good. It was good. It's been a crazy couple of weeks in the performing arts, and navigating that with decorum is yeah, you got to wake up and put on a little suit of armor and get out there and try to do the right thing. Uh, I will say Savannah just had a very successful first ever performing arts festival, which was great news. And the irony was, I think you and I go back far enough that you remember when we tried to get that thing off the ground for the first time like 20 years ago, and it
Yeah.
just it ended up, we kept getting people together, and everyone had really, really, really good ideas. And I think, the first time we tried to do it, it ended up being that no one had remembered to take notes because everyone thought someone else was doing it, so it fell apart. And the second time we tried to do it a year or two later, no one brought snacks, so everyone was hangry and we never got anywhere. And then, so, 20 years later, I realized it's a very specific thing. It's got to be the right time. It has to be the right people. There has to be the right amount of capital available. But it all came together, and the event went really, really well. So right on,
I,
man.
s- I saw all the photos. I'm so excited for you. I'm always following your adventures and seeing just what you're up to.
Yeah, am I allowed to say a URL that's not the podcast URL on the podcast?
Yeah, man, pitch it out. Let's do it.
OnStageSavannah.com. Now I've done my due diligence.
Wait, hang on. Where's my bell? Here we go. There we go. On stage. Savannah.
That was nice. That was nice. It was like,
I,
is
I've
that
t-
like
I have two
somebody
tones. I
stole
can,
that from?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I do it.
This is a good podcast. I like this podcast.
Yes. Well, we've been friends a long
Yeah, all the listeners are witnessing our shorthand right now.
time.
And
I did see
and how's
you.
everything? How's everything in the north of the state that I'm sometimes in? How's everything north of
It's
me?
good. It's good. Just doing this. I'm getting into the second season of my podcast and getting things out of the can and wrapping up the first. So it's pretty exciting. I never thought I'd get this thing off the ground. I talked about it for years, and
Yeah,
here we are. So
right
that's
on.
cool. And I really thought that I would have more emails and more people calling in and people emailing in, and I have a lot of listeners, and then nobody wants to tell me their stories, and it's like, huh, all right. Well, anyway, listeners, I'm talking to you, the paranormal nation out there. If you have a story that you'd like to tell me, I'd love to hear it. Would you like to be a guest in the show? Because I'd love to have you on paranormal record podcast at gmail.com. Type in type in, give me an email, tell me about yourself, and I'll give you a call and we'll talk and set something up. But yeah, Ryan, it's crazy. I saw you and um, Chris and a bunch of other people I absolutely enjoy. And I finally got to see you in once, and you were on the Broadway cast of that and then toured with that show as well. And
I had a wild journey. I ended up working for the original production the whole 3.5 years. And then, yeah, no, interestingly, I never ended up on the national tour per se. That went out while I
okay,
was doing some other work. But I got to do some of the very, very first regionals, which was really interesting to go,
because you were in Florida and you were in South Carolina, right? You were coming through, right? That was
Oh yeah, at this point, Lord, I think as of the one we did in Savannah, I think that was 12. That was 12 that weren't the original production. And some of
okay.
those I was music souping, and some I was music directing, and some I was playing roles in. But it was really amazing because you take a show that struck as much of a chord as that one did. And at this point, anything that runs over a
Yes.
year on Broadway has that means it struck some sort of a chord. And the original, which I was blessed enough to get to watch as much as I did and work on, that was over 3 years. So when these directors who are brilliant in their own right, when they get the rights to these things, and they're not allowed to do what's called the sort of the library production. They can't, they're not encouraged to use, in some cases legally prohibited from using the set designs and the lighting designs of the original production.
Ha.
So
Okay.
I've
While
done all
it's on
sorts of
tour.
versions.
While it's
Yeah.
on tour. Yeah, I ran into that. I ran into stuff like that, and then I was like, what? How can that possibly affect us here in Atlanta, and they're like, "Hey, if the show's on tour, you gotta, if you want to buy the rights, you got to do this, you got to do this, but you can't." Yeah, there's all these rules. I
Yeah.
remember that. It's so weird. It's like we're just promoting your show.
Right. Well, and as a writer, like, some of the rules as a writer, I like the idea that, theoretically your firm is out there trying to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. So, but as a producer, I want to be able to, I want to be able to put on the shows that I think the people I'm producing for are going to appreciate, but I also am trying to do it from the writer perspective that I want them to be able to, get the biggest bang for their buck, which sometimes means you only get one production in a state, or if it's coming in a year and a half on a tour, you don't get to do it for that whole year and a half. There's that our industry for as flexible of an industry as it seems like it is there's a lot of rules and regulations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what a wonderful night of theater, and to finally, after seeing you and seeing you do the show so far away that I couldn't get to, and then all of a sudden, you were in it, you were the main character, and then oh man, and I took my dad, and I had an expectation of 10, and you gave me 20. Like
Appreciate you.
it's one of the best shows I've seen, and not just because my friend was in it, it not because it was once. You guys did something else, and you really set a bar with that one. And it's just what I want out of a night at the theater. It's just what I want, and you guys gave it to me.
Well, shout out to Francesca Mintoff.
Oh my
She
God,
was the director on that, and Chris Stanley,
Chris
man, shout him
Stanley,
out.
Chris
Yeah.
Stanley. Ah man, and I saw it at Trustees. Like just because both you and I went to SCAD. SCAD, you can give some of my money back to me if you want. At least listen to the show. Love you, SCAD. Love you so much. What a great
Scad.edu.
experience. What a great experience. We went to the Savannah campus.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, which because the Atlanta thing is so big now and the France thing is so big now, you have to be like, no, this is where I was. So they're saying, um, yeah, yeah. So I know I'm always shouting from the hilltops about that show, but I'm such a critic and I just loved it so much. Thank you
Appreciate it.
again.
Yeah, man. Well,
Thank you again.
I'm happy to be on your show. I'm happy you get to my show. We'll just
Yeah,
keep trading off shows for the rest of our lives.
that's
That sounds
I
great.
like that. I like that. All right, so Ryan, getting to ghosts.
I
Um,
would love to, yes.
you lived in Savannah, one of the most haunted cities, possibly the most haunted city. It's neck and neck with New Orleans, right? Or St. Augustine.
Hmm.
Everyone has this opinion, but um, tell us your story. The floor is yours.
The and I think it's interesting because I've been to all those cities, and except for Savannah, I've spent time in New Orleans, I've spent time in St. Augustine. Uh, I've never had anything resembling this kind of an experience in those cities. And in New York, I think, a lot of people,
Oh yeah,
obviously New York has so much, as much heritage, if not more, or the same amount as Savannah. I haven't had what I would consider a paranormal or a ghost experience there, but Savannah, it just, the whole place is lit. It's lit up. And I think part of it was I was expecting to have one because my first ever job during college was with Ghost and Gravestones, which is
which
Old Town.
I
Yeah,
we worked there together, sir.
that's right. I was going to say, which
Fantastic.
we worked at together, and I think something about, that was the job that was helping pay for the books for college and helping, it was helping me keep ramen in my mouth and all of that. So, and I ended up doing that, across all the various Ghost and Gravestones operations in the country. I've worked off and on for them for 20 years, but I think it wired
That's
my
awesome.
brain. Yeah, no, and that's been the irony was, I spent so much time. We had a good time on those tours. The house I'm going to tell you the story about, on Habersham. Actually, the trolley went by before, during, and after the story I'm going to tell you. And so there, for all of the energy that we were putting into doing fictionalized paranormal encounters. For instance, I had a number of drivers that would give me a little buzz when they were about to leave. Obviously, they weren't texting while they were driving, but they'd give me a little buzz before they pulled away from the river. And we always knew that was going to be about 10 to 12 minutes before they got by my house on Habersham that I was sharing with a bunch of other folks. And so I would hear it. You could hear the trolley coming down the street, and I would turn all the lights off if I was home alone. And then as the trolley passed, I would flicker as many switches as I could run to in the 30 seconds as it was going by. And you would know if you'd hit pay dirt because you would hear these out through the window. So then the irony, I mean, the irony that the very terrifying real story took place in that house after I, played so many games with the concept of the paranormal. But
Right.
so I was dating someone at the time who you remember, became my wife and then became my ex-wife. So she figures into this story. Wait, not my ex-wife because of this particular story, although that would be amazing. But
Another friend of mine. Absolutely. For sure.
yeah. So she'll figure into the story in a minute. But when I moved into 7 Habersham, we knew that it was an old house because it had a cornerstone from the late 1700s, and it has since been renovated. But when we were living there, it had been nicely. Now it's been fully renovated. But at the time, it had been broken into a number of apartments. It was this one big, rambling 4-story house with this, beautiful, had reading nooks at all the windows. It had, the very sort of traditional, like there was a widow's walk type panel at the top where you could sit and just, look out at the river. It was beautiful.
I
And
think
it had
I've
been,
seen you play piano in this room. I think you've played piano in a
yeah.
video in this room before.
Oh, I absolutely have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there was this really lovely connection to history, and the house had been segmented so that we lived on my roommates and I lived on the top 2 floors. And it was one of those things that, the day we moved in, or the day I moved in, there was some like joking about let us know when you encounter your first paranormal and you have your first paranormal experience. And I said, oh, okay, I will. And I hadn't really had one up to that point. Um, and it was just little things, uh, like keys being in different places and the shower downstairs, the shower on the main floor would turn itself on, which, understandably things happen in old houses, but that required, the actual that was it had to have it was turned, it was physically turned on. And I thought for a while I had one particular roommate who was kind of a ham, and I figured, these things were him because he was almost always there. He was kind of an indoor cat. And then when they started happening when I was legitimately alone in the house, I was thinking, okay, well, this is a whole vibe then. And what was really beautiful about the house is we were on 2 floors, and there was this almost completely original staircase that went from the hallway of the main floor to the second floor. And I lived at various times on the second floor and on the main floor, depending on who else was in the house. And the first thing I remember happening, which kind of is the preface to the rest of the story, was I was on one of my very first dates with my now ex, and I was trying to impress her, and the house was beautiful, and it was a beautiful house in a beautiful part of the city. And so I was like, oh, come on over, and and I'll make dessert, and it'll be great. And that was legitimately all that I was thinking we would get up to, partially because I was hesitant about the house, and I was like, I don't know that I had never had anyone stay over, and I was like, I don't know that I want someone to stay over because this house is a little bit full of feels. Um, so she came over after the date, and I was making dessert, and there was a window looking out at Habersham. It was the front, the big front window, and she heard something outside, which I didn't hear, and I thought that was weird. She said it was like a cat mewing or something like that. I don't even remember what it was, but it was an animal of some sort. I didn't hear it, and the kitchen was right there. But she goes over and she leans out the window, and the frame lets loose, and she barely got back in, and the thing slams shut, half an inch off of her from catching her fingers. And 3 seconds earlier, and it would have caught her neck in the frame. I mean, and
Holy
she's freaking
shit.
out. I'm freaking out. I
I'm
mean,
freaking out.
Rob's freaking out. Yeah. And to be completely honest, we did not stay there. Like we I abandoned my plans. We went somewhere else because it had really spooked her. And she and I really never talked about it all that much after, but it seemed to be something that energized whatever was happening in that house. It was absolutely when things really, really started to happen. So a couple weeks later, the roommate that was in the big room on the main floor, he decides it's a great day to tell me a story
Oh shit.
about something that's happening to him.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm not sleeping very well. I'm waking up at about 2 or 3 every night slash morning, and there's a woman at the end of the bed. And I'm like, okay, say more. And he's like, yeah, she doesn't seem malicious. She doesn't seem mean. There's not blood pouring out of her face. It's like it's not any of the like traditional, spectacular encounters. But her presence is certainly uh, uncomfortable. And then he says, the part that gets really awful is that then I start feeling this sensation like I'm being pulled down into quicksand. But the bed is the quicksand, and I'm being pulled straight down through my sheets and I'm through the mattress. And the thing that I'll always remember is he says, as I'm being pulled down through the bed, um, finally she shows an expression and she's smiling. She's just gleeful about this fact that I'm getting pulled down into the bed. And the last thing I see before my face disappears underneath the sheets is that her smiling face coming up to look at me over the bed. And then he would always snap awake and there would be no one there. Except that occasionally when he would wake up, like the toilet would be flushing or the shower would have turned itself on, like all of the things that were already happening, but it would tie to this recurring dream. I was using air quotes, this dream that he was having.
Yeah.
So that freaked me right out. And it was not long after that I moved into the small room on that floor. And he moved to Seattle, Washington. So he was out of the picture. A couple weeks later, I was
And
home totally by
he moved
myself.
he
Yeah,
moved
he
out of the
moved. Yeah,
country.
he
He
moved
got
out
on
of
a
the country.
plane
Yeah,
and he's never come back.
yeah. He's now in Belgium, and
God.
I was in this room which was very small and it had like a panel door. And when you looked out of the panel door, it was the main hallway, and then you could see the stairs up to the second floor, and you could see the door to his room, or what had been his room. So it was probably just a couple of weeks later that I was home alone, and I heard just this huge scuffle happening above in a room that I had lived in previously. And I knew no one was home, and I heard this scuffle, and I heard things knocking over, and I heard a lamp give way, and I thought, my first thought, in Savannah, your first thought is, well, a squirrel's gotten in through a window. Like maybe my roommate left a window open and there's a squirrel there. So I open my panel door, and then the door at the top of the stairs opens, which is not good because it's a doorknob, and it's a doorknob and a clasp. So that means that something that is tall enough to get to the doorknob has turned the doorknob to open the door. So I'm not enjoying that. And then this is still one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me. So I'm looking, and all I can see is the stairwell. I can see like the slats and obviously the rungs of it and the stairs. And the door opens, and it's like almost 3 minutes that I'm just staring forward, and nothing is happening. All the sound has ceased, but the door is open. And all of a sudden, then I see this little tiny shoe, little tiny shoe come into frame on the first stair, followed by another little tiny shoe and with legs attached. And that's all I can see from my perspective. And then before any steps happen, before the shoes take a step, I like see the like little knees contracting, and this little boy's face comes between the two top slats of the stairs and just starts smiling at me. And I'm like, I'm done. Like I was like, but I also realized that my ability to exit this house is significantly further than whoever this is able to catch me at the bottom. Like I would need to get down a hallway and to a door at the bottom of the stairs faster than this thing could get down the stairs. So this is probably a good time to tell you that there is no lock on my sliding door. It's literally just this panel door, which was installed to add an extra bedroom into this rental situation. So I have no lock on the door. I have no windows that open anywhere that I can. All the windows are nailed shut because it's Savannah and they're trying to avoid break-ins. So I have that thing where it's like at least the nails are on my side. So like the windows won't open in my room, but at least they're on my side for my protection, which is, and you know Savannah, so you know that that's a very common, that's the landlord special there is to paint the paint over the electrical outlets and nail the windows shut from the inside.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do is just go ahead and close the door and pretend that nothing is happening, but I'm still obviously freaking out. And then I hear step, creak, step, and I'm counting, and I'm like, do I remember how many stairs there are? Like, will I know when whatever is happening is at the bottom of the stairs?
Oh my
And
God.
there's and just to make it worse, like every couple, like every 2 or 3 stairs, there's like a full 3 or 4 minute pause, and I keep like going up to the sliding door, and I keep thinking, if I open this right now, I may have a heart attack. Like, so it's like not opening the door, I'm having a heart attack, but if I do open the door, I may have a heart attack. Uh, I didn't have a smartwatch at that time because this is a long time ago and before wearables had become, but I'm sure like my heart rate was like 140, 150. And so finally I realized that the sound of the steps is in the hallway, not on the stairs. And the door opens to my former roommate's, where remember his dreams, it's that room. The door opens, I hear that door slam, and as soon as that door slams, I fling my door open, and I'm suddenly emboldened because I realize that I can get to that door, kick it open, look, and then if I need to, I can bolt really fast. So I run down the hall, I kick the door open. Of course, there's nothing in that room. And I go ahead and leave for the rest of the day. I figured that's probably all that I needed of that. Uh, so the end of the story is that months I'm there another year and a half, and occasionally things happen in that window that nearly caught my ex in its grip. It's unpredictable, but it never does that again. It becomes very hard to open, but once you have it open, it never slams again. And obviously, we tell everyone that visits, for your own safety, maybe just don't put your head out the window to look at the ground below. And so when we finally move out, I'm the last of the group that's moving out. And to hand over the key, the owner of the house and her college-age daughter, who had lived there for many years previous. I think this is, a 20, 21-year-old girl. And so they want to meet us at the restaurant at next door to hand the keys over. So I'm the only one that's in town to do it. So I take the appointment, and this woman and her daughter meet me there, and I'm handing over the keys, and I'm saying, I love the house, it's a shame, but at that point the relationship with my ex is going in a different direction, and we're looking for a place together. No one, it's just what it is. And I've handed over the keys, and I'm thinking I'm clear of the situation. And as I'm standing up, the daughter says, "Oh, do you know about the ghost?" And I say, "Well, I mean, I've had some encounters in the house." And she says, "Oh, well, when I was living there, I was in the big room on the main floor." I said, "Yeah, I know the big room on the main floor." And she said, "Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Um, for about 3 months, I had the same nightmare every night, and I would wake up at about 2 in the morning, and of course, at this point, like all of my
Oh
like
my
goosebumps,
gosh.
like my goose, like I'm totally goosebumped." She's like, "Yeah, I'd wake up about 2 a.m. and there would just be this woman at the end of the bed, and then I would get this feeling that I was sinking through the bed, and the last thing that I would see is she would look over the bed and and look in at me like I was in a coffin and she was looking down over the ground. And I kind of freaked out and said, "Oh yeah, I gotta go." And then I emailed them a couple days later.
You
I
threw the key
emailed
at them.
I threw the key. I said, "Get out, get out, get out." So the coup d'etat of the story. I mean, this woman and my former roommate, they had never met. They had no chance to synchronize that story. It was as random and delightfully chaotic as I've described it to you.
Yeah.
Um, but the coup d'etat was I went because I was still working for Ghost and Gravestones. There was one night that we were coming. We always went by the house, and if I had time, I would always say I used to live here, and I had some crazy real encounters here. And since I didn't live there anymore, I wasn't flicking the lights and everything. So it's like I would point at what was they did not find roommates for a while, so it was an empty house for a bit, and I would just point and say I had some really chaotic paranormal experiences in here, and people go, "Oh, okay." And then what I thought was, I think this was for me, it was the instant karma of I had spent so much time pretending that there was something, making it pretend that that people didn't believe me. And I was like, well, there's no reason they should believe me. I could be pointing at any house in Savannah and saying I lived in this house and I had encounters, and I could be making all of that up. So they have no reason to believe me, but every time they refused to believe me on the tour, I would get, a little bit of me would be hurt because it really, really did happen. But there was one night we were about to turn, and the police had set up this cordon, and we couldn't turn left on Haversham, and there were just police cars in front of the house, like at least three or four, and so we had to would do what's called a code white and go a different route. So I'm trying to figure out what stories to tell, but I'm also trying to figure out what's happened at the house. So come to find out, the next day, come to find out that a man was driving by the house, and as he was driving by the house, a little boy ran straight from in front of the house into Habersham Street, into traffic, and he thought he had struck the boy, and thought that the boy had gone under the car, because it's just like he saw the boy crumple and go. He felt the car jump, and he saw the boy go under the car, so he immediately stopped, and there was no boy, and there was no dog, there was no object there. But he called the cops because he was sure he had committed some sort of terrible uh, vehicular homicide. And so the cops got there and were just, some cops in Savannah were less kind than others when it came to paranormal encounters, for as many as you would imagine that they probably responded to. So they were making fun of him. And this poor man, this poor tourist from out of state had hit the boy. But it was the one thing that he swore that he saw before before the police showed up, is he swore that when he got out of the car, he saw on the other side of the car this one little white shoe. And then by the time he got around the car, even the shoe wasn't there. And obviously the body of a boy was not there. And that was definitively the color of the shoe that came down that staircase.
Right.
So for me, it's the fact that the paranormal, it's like these recurrences, it's like these loops that these people seem trapped in. And honestly, if a house was built in 1783, there's any number of complete life cycles and lives and deaths took place there. Anyway, that's the story I wanted to tell you. So
Wow. And he called the police because he saw what he saw. I mean, and then I think he probably just wanted to talk to somebody about it. I don't know. And
Well,
then he's like, I might have hit him. Maybe he's is in the undercarriage of the car. Like, I don't know. I don't even know. He
you
probably
have to
he
imagine,
probably
you have to
said that
imagine.
over and over again.
Well, and you think about it, I've heard over the years in working in the ghost industry off and on, like, you hear like very highly empathetic and caring people are the ones that are most susceptible to this stuff. You have to be open to there being something other than you, and then you have to be empathetic enough to want to try to make it better. So it's like he's absolutely the perfect recipient of this encounter, because it's obvious, like there are so many people that, and I hate to say it, but I know you and I probably know some of them, even though we don't know who they are, because no one knows how they're going to behave until they're put
Right.
into a crisis. There are a lot of people that would think that they hit somebody and then they would just accelerate away from the situation. So the fact that he not only stayed, but then when it was clear he had not committed a crime, he was so sure that he had done something terrible. And of course, my trolley just went idling by, and I was like, oh, I wish I had known that this man that I saw surrounded by cops was going through this, because I was the perfect person to get out and tell him he wasn't crazy, and
Right.
that he also hadn't killed anyone.
Yeah.
But of course, I had a tour to give. I had 30 people on the trolley, and I think that was always the thing about a lot of the stories that I have, because I've got a bunch of stories like that that involve Savannah, and it's like you always put the pieces together too late to help other people that were having the same encounter. Like I would find things out months or years after people had experiences that I'd also had, and by that time, they've already worked through it, and it's like, well, if we caught each other or experienced the same thing at the same time, we could have been helpful to each other. But yeah,
Right. I don't think that's a little boy.
yeah. Tell me, say
Yeah, you
more.
know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a little boy. I think that it's just something, something bad that's just, wreaking havoc and mischief. And it's interesting that he can go all the way into the street. Like he can come out of the house and go all the way into the street and mess with people. And that
Yeah,
I guess no one was living there. So he was just like, well, I think I'll go outside today. I mean, like when you saw him at the top of those stairs to those slats, you didn't think that was a little kid. I mean, you were looking at a little kid, but something was wrong. You didn't think
oh
that there was a
yeah.
child in your house. You
No,
didn't
no.
even run. You didn't even run. You were just like, nah, that's a ghost. What I'm looking at is something else. And I'm gonna leave. I'm just gonna leave, and I'm gonna leave slowly because he could be here right in front of me very quickly. I'm just gonna back slowly out of here and hope he doesn't come any closer to me.
Yeah,
What how
it was a game over man moment for me, for sure. Yeah.
right? Because you knew you weren't looking at a child in your house. What do you remember? What was? Can you see clothes in your memory? Was he wearing
Yeah.
clothes besides his shoes?
Well, I remember there was like really like classic sort of like Victorian like pants, like the kind of pants they used to throw kids in. Like
Right?
I remember that. I remember sort of a blousy top. But to be totally frank, like once I saw the shoes and my blood
Yeah,
ran cold, and then once I
yeah,
saw the
yeah.
face, and I was like, oh no 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 no.
You're like, I can't pass out. I gotta stay awake. I can't faint.
Yeah. Well, it's wild. I think to your point,
Yeah.
whatever that energy is and how I was manifesting, like the good news is I don't for a while. I would see the face when I was trying to go to sleep, and then like I got to
The
a point where I
kid or
used
the kid or the lady?
the kid. I would see the
Oh
kid
God.
from time
Oh
to time.
God. Oh my
But then
God, Ryan.
at a certain point, I shook it.
Yeah.
But then what's wild about it? I never saw the woman.
He
That
was
was
he
just.
was he was in your room. You saw his face in your room.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, but it like, but like it, somewhere between. It was when I was trying to go to sleep. It was like mind's eye would take over, but I was back in that moment when the face. Because I think what was really creepy about the moment when it happened was like my logical brain knew that what he was doing was adjusting his weight to get where I could see him. And I
Right.
think, my logical brain knew there was going to be a face, and knew that, and the face was not, again, like neither according to the stories of my former roommates and the owner's daughter, like according to their stories, like the woman, no bloody face, no like missing
Right.
limbs, no,
Yeah.
and the same thing, like I think what was the most terrifying was that the little boy's face was not covered in blood. Like I think that almost would have been not poor kid, but like it would have been better if it had been something obviously otherworldly, whereas
Right.
it was just this normal kid's face that wasn't right, and the smile was not right. Like I
Oh,
don't want to be smiled at by you. And so the thing is, I can still, like, I'm thinking of it right now. I can still conjure the face. You know how when you get like you get a floater in your field of vision,
Yeah.
that you can't blink away for a certain period of time. If I think about it, I can conjure it like a floater in my vision. I can see his face. I've been able to do it for the whole 20 years that have ensued since. So
I mean, I think you're just trying to deal with what you went through, and that's what you've come up with. You can't just continue to leave every time. It's not like you could go get another apartment. It's not like you have money on trees. You have to keep living there. You have to figure out a way to deal with it. You can't just leave every time you see him. So you had to kind of at one point just like be like, all right, all right. But still, that's terrifying. And I guess yeah, I guess you just worked through it. Like, was there a process that after that first encounter when you came back home? Because were you alone again, or were there other people
yeah,
around? You
no,
were alone again,
everyone was out of town for the weekend. Yeah, so
so you
I
kind of
came
had to
back.
like push through. All your food's there. You got to go back. You can't
I
afford to
got in the
just
habit of I would
stay
walk in.
out.
I started announcing my presence. I would walk in and say, I'm here. Can we please go?" I would start talking, and I would shout up the stairs. I'd say, "Can you please? I'm back. I'll be gone again tomorrow at this time." Like I almost like tried to set a calendar for it. And interestingly, my relationship with my ex was starting to take off at the same time. So I was staying more and more at her place anyway, because as you can imagine, she had very little she wanted to do with that house after that first encounter, after the
Did
window. So
did you tell her about the boy soon after, or did you tell
oh
her
yeah, yeah,
later?
yeah. Oh,
Oh, you told her.
she was in class it happened. So when I fled, I just wandered around the streets for a little while, and then I think I
Yeah.
told her either that night or the next day. Yeah.
Okay. Did she still come over?
No, not very much. No, I mean my
Did
my
she?
my memory is
Yeah.
probably zero times after that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But she never saw anything else.
Oh, and she didn't see. I mean, she heard something, and then she didn't see anything.
Right.
Hers was very poltergeistery, and mine was
But
very
it
like full
baited
body
her.
apparition.
It baited her to stick her head in the window. Like I'd hate to think that that thing was trying to hurt her, but I mean,
Yeah.
it did. It did. It baited her. It was like, help me, and then she's like, oh no, a kitten's on the second floor or whatever, right? And then like that's, I mean, did your house try to hurt anybody else besides that instance? But I'm really glad that no one got hurt. But that's yikes.
Well, we
Yeah.
shot an episode. We shot an episode of While You Were Out, which was one of the Trading Spaces precursors, from back in that era. This is like 2004, 2005,
I think you
and
told me about this. Yeah.
yeah, we shot an episode of it. And they I was like, I don't know how to tell the camera crew and these hosts like that weird things happen. So I remember, I think I said, there's been that window. Someone almost got hurt in that window. So just be careful. And they basically just poo-pooed. And what was kind of bizarre about it was when they were there for 3 full days, and they would shoot like 10 hours, and then I would sleep. Then I would stay there for the night, and my roommates got paid to be other places while they were shooting the show. While they were there, because they had the cameras and the sound equipment, and it stayed there overnight, like it was the quietest that the house had ever been. Because I was still just me at the end of the night, because the roommate that I was doing it for had been spirited away to Atlanta, because that was the whole part of the show. The roommate went somewhere else, or the wife or the partner went somewhere else. Um, and so I was still alone, and the camera crew would go back to their hotels. But because all this technology was there, for some reason, it felt like the house was totally quiet, and I didn't hear or feel anything for that whole 3 days. And then they packed up their stuff and they went, and it started again. Like the next day, I would hear the footsteps occasionally. So it's crazy, man.
Wow. So where did you get the white shoes story from the police later, or where did you get that story from?
Oh, well,
The tourist?
well, the irony was, at the same time that I was working for Ghosts and Gravestones, this was an era of Ghosts and Gravestones where we used to do full ghostly makeup, and we wore like gravediggers garments. I think some of the cities still do that and some don't. I think Savannah has done both street clothes and costumes for those actors over the years. And so I had gotten on the quote unquote wrong side of the police several times.
Oh no,
Because
because they think, yeah.
yeah, well, because like I'd be walking in the alleys down on River Street, which is, it's dark already, it's moody already, and this 6'2" guy, with this long cloak. So, cops would come up to me, and so I had made friends with some of them, and they
Ah.
would tell me stories. And so the next day, I saw one of the cops when I was starting my shift, and I said, "Hey, do you know anything about what happened at Habersham last night?" And the guy like had a work down for me of all those details because he was the only one I think that he had heard it. He had heard all the details when they got back to the station after taking the report, and he wrote all of them down to tell me because he figured I would be the
Did
one that
you
would appreciate it.
did you tell him about your white shoe encounter?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he believed me.
What was his reaction?
Well, I think he thought I was reverse engineering a story to go with what he had just told me because as far as he knew, he was giving me new information, and then suddenly I went, "Oh yeah, well that's like this thing." And I think,
Ah,
I knew that it had happened in
ah.
reverse order, but I think he thought I was spinning a story. So
Yeah, you can
it's
see it
what
on
it
people's
is.
face. You can see it on people's faces when that happens. You're like, no, 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 no. I know what you're talking about, and I have more information. And they're like, you're just giving me back what I gave you. And it's like, can't even talk them out of it.
Well, the irony is, the better I've gotten at taking care of myself physically and exercising and diet and drinking enough water, like the better I've gotten at doing stuff like that, you know, uh, talking to people when I need help instead of just like closing myself up, the less I've had any kind of encounter like that. I mean, this caught me at a very specific point in my life where I was not taking care of myself. I was kind of in that moody, I was buying into the lie of the moody, tortured artist. I was not eating enough. I was not taking care of myself. And so I think I was definitely in a place to receive this type of
Oh,
information. And
okay.
I haven't, I mean, it's been years since I've even felt uncomfortable in any space. And I've stayed in some pretty what you would consider spooky environments by myself since, and no feelings of any kind. So I feel like if they come back, I should probably start drinking more water or eating better.
Maybe. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
I was reading once, and I thought this was so cool, that people, when they pray, would give off an energy, and that energy was strong enough to defeat whatever was happening just by people's praying and pushing that out there, and that not what they were saying in the prayer, but the feelings behind the prayer and the positive, like, I will stand with what I believe in spiritually, and I am talking to that person and asking them to protect me, and that is powerful,
It's huge. It's hugely
right?
powerful. Yes.
Like, did I explain that? Did that make sense what I was saying?
Yeah, perfect
Okay,
sense.
yeah. So I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, that's brilliant. Like, I've never even thought about it like that, but wow, that's powerful, positive, you know. There was another story that I read where there was a girl and she was staying overnight in a hotel, and then something just started talking to her from the corner of the room, and she just turns the lights on and she's like, "Shut up!" and went back to bed. Now, I I'm just not that brave. I don't know. I don't know what I would
Mm.
do. But that's some badassery. I love that story. Shut up.
That's great. That's great.
She turned the light on. She's like, I'm not playing. Click,
Yeah.
click. I've had enough of this.
Yeah. Try to get some sleep, man. Yeah.
I don't have time for this. Shut up. I know your name. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
shut up. That's great. You
A
heard me
lot, a lot of
talking on the
people do. I'm in
phone.
the phone book. Yeah.
Yeah. You saw it on my luggage. Click, click. Shut up.
Your name is Teresa. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my mother calls me. Yeah.
This is just Teresa's handbag. I'm Doug.
That's what you get for buying
Uh,
stuff at Goodwill and has
that's
someone else's tag. You
that's right. Well,
send a message to Teresa. I don't know her.
that's probably what's haunting you is whatever you bought at Goodwill. That's that jacket that is haunted.
Yeah. Can you imagine? The thing about Savannah is all the stories fall into two categories. There's the fun to tell ones like mine, and then there's some that some of my friends had over the years. I mean, I think the short form version of the one I'm thinking of is a set designer or a production designer that I worked with extensively, or that we worked with at the theater company that I was starting at the time. I mean, there was one where she was in a place that was known to have affect people in different ways, and mostly they would just like blink and be in a different part of the room, or they would they would take a breath and find themselves exhaling, looking out of a window when they breathed in, they were facing away from the window. There were all these just like weird little, and I had my own experiences in that house, but mine were all fairly manageable. But I think the shortest and weirdest one that happened with her was she was walking by a room where a lot of people had encountered something whispering names and something knowing information about people. And all of us, everyone else that experienced it just would hear it and freak out and run away. And I'm not entirely unconvinced over the years that at least some of that wasn't coworkers and people, playing games. But what was terrifying for her is that apparently she heard her name and then she blinked and she was in Forsyth Park, which was 7.5 blocks from the house. And they found security camera footage from at least two of the squares that she had walked through that show her just walking, not with anybody, but just show her walking totally ashen faced in a straight line from the house to Forsyth Park, where she then came back. And of course, she went and saw a neurologist, and the neurologist like, nothing wrong with your brain. And so after that, we literally locked that room down because it was a house that had house tours, and we just locked that room down. It was like no one needs to be walking by the open door to that room anymore.
I never
So
even heard of that. That's so dangerous. That's just like
yeah, and those
I don't
stories
even
aren't
know
fun to
what
tell.
I don't
Yeah.
even know what that is. I've never even I mean I've never even heard of that. Like I don't like whatever was going on with that girl in that hotel, the Chelsea Hotel in LA, where she was
Hmm.
in the elevator and then they found her in the water tower. Like she wasn't on, they didn't find any drugs in her system.
No, something
What
happened to her. Yeah, yeah.
something we saw something happening to her, and that's one of the most mysterious cases too. But like, what if someone was mentally vulnerable enough or whatever, and could be attached to something, and then they could make you walk to Forsyth Park, or not even mentally vulnerable enough, or just you're in the wrong place at the right time for that thing, and then I mean, dude, that is a serious thing that happened to her. That is not an occasional, I thought I
No.
saw somebody in the other room or something was in the television reflection when I turned the lights off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like that's 7 blocks, dude.
Yeah. Well, and what was bizarre, I mean, of all the things that were bizarre, is like her phone was still she had put her phone down because she was giving house tours. So obviously, you're not supposed to have your phones on you. So she got back to the house. I mean, she didn't know what to do, so she just walked back she didn't have her phone on her. She walked back to the house. The phone was where she had left it in the house. I mean, the video camera footage shows I mean, she didn't teleport, she didn't levitate.
No,
She walked of her own free
she
will.
traveled. Yeah, she
Yeah.
traveled.
And that was the same era. A mutual friend of ours who shall remain unnamed, but I'll tell you after
That's fine.
after we
Yeah, yeah.
mutual friend of ours was at that time using as his Facebook profile picture. uh, he was using the picture of a security camera footage of a man who had robbed a bank in Savannah while he was not in the state, but that looked a lot like him, that enough that the FBI accused him of it briefly. He was using the actual security shot that he got off the news as his Facebook profile picture. It's like this meta joke that like this isn't me, but everyone else thinks it's me. So, and at the same
That
time, like she used the picture of her walking as her Facebook profile picture for a minute. So there's this weird meta moment where,
that is
people were
those
playing all these tricks, and I was like, what is happening here? Because
those
those
are
things were happening at exactly the same time.
that's really some bold shit. Like that is a that's definitely a finger to the man to be like, oh, you thought I was somebody else, FBI? You know what? I'm gonna keep this going.
Well, I drove him to the it was one I apologize so much. I drove him to the FBI office in Savannah. They had been trying to get a hold of him for someone. Well, what was bizarre about that is someone had called and said, I've seen the picture on the news and I think it is this man.
Sure.
So someone had ratted him out. We decided it was probably one of his vindictive of X's. And so I drove him to the FBI office, and I guess I thought it wasn't serious, or that it wasn't serious enough so I went up the stairs to the FBI office downtown with him, and I thought, they were going to let me come in and have a cup of coffee while he had his interview, and they opened the door, and it's like bad cop, bad cop. It's two officers, neither of whom is in a good mood, and they like let him in, and then they look at me and they say, he'll inform you when he's done, and they slam the door in my face. And I remember for like
Oh
10
my
seconds,
God.
I was like, my friend is gone, my friend is dead. I remember thinking that, and then
Oh
he
my
was in there for
God.
he was in there for an hour, and then he called. He said, "Yeah, that wasn't my favorite day." But then he used but then he took the picture and used it as his Facebook
I
profile
mean,
picture. I was
that's
like, "My
that's
man."
that's pretty badass. You know what? I don't know what I would do as a reaction to that. That's really scary. And that's their way of coping with it,
Yeah,
using it as a using it as man, like that's pretty badass.
yeah.
Yeah,
You want to
it's
scare?
pretty
You want to scare
badass.
me? You want to scare me?
Yeah.
I looked. Yeah, she's like, they're like, we look good in these photos. One of them is not him, and one she doesn't have any memory of happening, but we're gonna use it
Certainly
because we look
she
good.
was somebody just surfed her to Forsyth Park, just took a little ride.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard of that, man. That's
Well,
crazy.
I wanted that
I've
story
heard
to
of
make more.
people I've heard of people losing time,
Yeah.
but not being like I felt something paranormal weird, and then I found myself at the Forsyth Park 7 blocks away.
Well,
And
I
of
wanted
course
it to make more sense. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well,
No,
because
no, no.
I kept being like, were you staring at a statue? Where like, were you looking at was there something, was a clue? She's like, no, it's just under a tree. I'm like, somehow that's even creepier. Like, it would have made sense if she's like, I was looking at a gravestone. Oh, okay. Well, but no,
Yeah.
she's like, I was under a tree and it was really weird. I'm like, I bet it was. Yeah.
Every time I pass a mayor in the hallway, I said Bloody Mary. I don't believe in that stuff, but I would say it. I knew this place was haunted, so I was like, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. And even when I turned the lights off, I just said Bloody Mary one more time when I passed that mayor. Maybe it was Mary.
Might have been.
I don't, yeah.
There's something
Oh
about
my
Mary.
God. Oh my God. Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Well, I wanted to say earlier that you've done once more than once, but I didn't get around fast enough to do it. I had it worded better. Anyway.
You always do. You do fantastic. I'm just glad you called and wanted to hear my story.
So you've done once more than once.
Are you
I've
gonna
done
edit that
once.
back into the beginning of this?
I've done once a lot. No,
This
I
is
don't know.
when we did it in Miami. This is totally true. When we did it in
I just knew
Miami,
you'd appreciate it and laugh.
I like that fun. When we did we had more than one person, because there's a huge Spanish speaking population down there, and we had more than one really sweet older grandma who didn't speak English and would see it on the billboard and would come in and would think that it was once. They would think it was 11 in Spanish, and so we had multiple people come up and who didn't speak
Uh,
English, and they would be wanting to buy a
yes.
ticket to see the Spanish language musical Once.
Once they,
And yeah, so we would always
I,
we anyone that would come in and ask for Once, would give them free tickets because it was like,
that's
please come and see our
fantastic.
show.
That's fantastic. I saw, I had to park my car. Okay. So my friend was like, you have to see this movie. It's awesome. I'm like, all right, I've heard of it. And then he's like, no, you have to see it. In fact, here's my DVD. Just go home, just watch this movie. And then I did, and then I was just obsessed. Like I bought the CD or I downloaded it and I was listening to it. And then when Glenn came to Atlanta, I went to the show. I was so excited. I was just blown away that it took me it was such a whirlwind. When you hear something you just love and you're just like, oh my God, I love this so much. Um, I was parking my car going to his show and I was a little bit late, and I'm going down the alley behind Buckhead Theater from where I parked my car, and I look behind Buckhead Theater, and there's Glenn just going into the door, and I'm like, I'm in a movie. He's late too. I right, like I mean, of all the, and he was by himself. He's probably I don't know. He stepped outside for a second, but I know it's him because he was wearing the same clothes when he came back outside on stage, and I was like, it probably wasn't him. I'm just wishing it was him because I'm so excited. But it was. He was just, he popped his head out the back door, and then he was headed back in as I was passing down that alley, and I was like, I think that was Glenn. So
Celebrities.
cool.
They're just like
So
us.
cool. So cool. But I had such a great time. Yeah. And then I found out you were involved, and I'm like, this just keeps getting better and better. So, yeah, I
Appreciate you,
love that.
brother.
I love that show. Yeah, it's so great. Um, well, thanks for hanging out with me, man. I know that you've got a tight timeline. We got to get you out of here, but thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, man.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're rolling into more episodes of the show. I hope people take you up on your hope people send you the link and get their stories told. I will definitely be listening. So
Tell people to listen to that first episode. It's still my favorite for sure.
yeah, it's groovy, man. It's very groovy. Oh, well,
Well,
good talking
Ryan,
with you. Call me anytime. Yeah.
yeah, brother, I appreciate you so much, man. Have a good night, Ryan. Thank you so much.
All right, you too, Rob. Bye.
Take care. Well, that was quite a tale, quite a story. I don't know, I don't know what to do with this information. Like, it's so crazy. Like, it's just nuts. You know what what Ryan saw, right? Like, and then also, what about that girl that she just got possessed, and then it walked her 3 blocks from where she worked, and she left her phone and just walked out of work in the middle of shift? What? And then what about the ghost that whatever that child thing is in the house, right? And it can leave the house and go outside and mess with people on the street? That's new. That's a new. What is the range of ghosts? Right? Like, how does that work? They can just leave wherever they're at, and if they want to, and like go out on the street in front of where they are normally, and then I don't know, man. I don't know what I would do. That's so nuts. That little kid's face just peering at him down the stairs, and he knows that's not a real kid in his house. He knows there's no kid. Something is happening. Just so creepy, man. That's freaking me out. Wow. Well, if you have your own tale and you want to share it on the show, please write in to Paranormal Record Podcast at gmail.com. I've got stickers. If you write me an email and tell me what you think about the show and say hello and give me your address, I will send you a sticker. I will pay for the stamp. I really do have a good time doing this and really enjoy putting these together for you guys. And I appreciate you out there, the listeners, the Paranormal Nation. I did get to go and take part in Haunt Atlanta. I was a guest for the very first time at a paranormal convention. I met a lot of friends and had a blast. So Hotlanta next year is going to be amazing. Come see me at Haunt Atlanta next year, ladies and gentlemen. I hope to be there. They asked me and contacted me a few weeks before the convention started and asked me if I wanted to come and bring Paranormal Record there, and I said yes, I would love to. So hopefully they give me an invitation back, but regardless, I'm going to try to go. But I think I'm going to do that again. That was really cool, and I met a lot of great people, and I just had a blast. There's so many people out there that also share our spooky little hobby and also share in our interest of all things paranormal, and it was just really cool to spend a few days with just a bunch of other paranormal people, paranormal ghost, spooky nerds. Man, I had a blast. So check out Haunt Atlanta, and I'm going to try to be there next year, so we'll see. But thanks for listening, guys. Please write in, and thanks to you, my dear friend Ryan McCurdy, and hope you come back on the show and tell us some more about your experiences in Savannah. He told me that there was more to tell, so Maybe I'll have Ryan on again soon. Would you like that? I would like that. Well, guys, thanks for listening. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time. Good night.